Scrappy people, it's Traci Reed here today, coming at you with a layout for my Sketchy Sunday number 11. You can see it up there in the top left-hand corner. And today I'm going to be working in my Life Crafted album with the On the Go and Going Slow collection. There will be a blog post linked in the description box below with not only my example, but all of the team's examples with this sketch too, plus a downloadable PDF of the sketch if you want to download it and print it out. So because I'm working with Traveler's Notebook size papers, my strips to go across the page are a little bit short. So I'm extending those paper strips by, they were 4x6 cards, so the 6 inches wasn't quite enough. So I'm extending them by using the leftover from the 4x6 card that I had trimmed down, because I trimmed them down to 2 inches, so they were 2x6 inches. So I had 2x6 inch strips left. I trimmed those down to 2x2 squares, and now I am layering them in the order that I want them to be, and then rearranging the papers a little bit so that they fit. So now I'm going to line them up on the other side, and I'm going to tell you the truth, I took forever to do this because I should have cut all of these paper strips to 1¼ inches, and instead of overlapping them this way, once I knew that the 2 inches was too large, but I didn't do that. I overlapped them instead. So then when I go to trim the edges of the paper strips, because they are all different lengths on the sketch, it gives an overlapped look, which is not what I was going for. I was going for a paper strip, like a single paper strip look. So then I had to go in and I had to trim all of the paper strips again to like 1¼ inches, and you can see I've already gone in and done that. I spared you all of that process because it literally took me like 45 minutes of this hour-long video to fix these paper strips. So learn from me and cut your paper strips to the appropriate length or width first. So on the sketch, you can interpret these notched banner sort of as paper strips like I did, or if you're going to do this digitally, you can use digital ribbon, or you can use real ribbon in real life. I decided to go with paper strips rather than ribbon because I don't really have a very large ribbon stashed anyway, so I thought that I would use like the remnants of the papers that I had trimmed down and go with that instead. So you can see I've layered the paper strips up, and what I'm going to do now is, instead of using my sewing machine, which always gives me fits lately, I think I need a new needle, I'm going to use these Cocoa Daisy stitching stamps that I remembered I had in my stash. Seriously, the most useful stamp that I've ever gotten from Cocoa Daisy. I love it so, so much. And I'm going to stamp well, you can see I'm stamping along the quote-unquote ribbons, and then I'm going to stamp around the outside edges of the layout as well, just like it shows on the sketch. So first I'm starting here. I'm using a little paper scrap to cover up the portions that I don't want stamped, and now I'm going to go around and print. I'm going to go and I'm going to add in some messy stitching as well. I love messy stitching rather than perfect lines. It also gives you a little bit of leeway for when you mess up, which I did plenty of times when scrapbooking this layout, but because I intentionally made it messy, not a big deal. So I'm using the double stitch stamp instead of the single stitch for the border, and I'm going to be honest with you, it was an accident. I thought I pulled the single stitch stamp and I pulled the double stitch stamp instead, but I actually like how it looks around the outside edges. It kind of reinforces it a little bit better than the single stitch probably would have, so it works. So I do deviate from the sketch a little bit at this point because I'm going to add in some embellishments. I mean, obviously there's no embellishments on the sketch, but I'm going to add in some embellishments in a way that makes it so that I don't add the super large title like I had initially planned, because I'm going to add this small title, and then I'm actually going to add a title with letter stickers too. So there's lots of words on this page. I always use a lot of words on my pages. I really like word art. I find it to be a great design piece. So I left in this whole process of me rearranging and then rearranging again the die cuts that I had pulled out from the sticker set until I have something that I like. So I really wanted to go with these snails. There's a bigger one and a littler one. So there's, one for me, one for Finn, and then I wanted to use these hexagons as well, but there were too many of them. Well, I didn't want to use the sweet like honey. I like the concept of the sweet like honey, but because I was using the snails instead of the bees, it didn't really tie into the theme as well, so I do end up taking that away, and I end up rearranging these die cuts like a million times, and then I still screw it up just a little bit because I did not take into account the fact that I was cutting this layout in half and adding holes. I swear, if you are like me and you work in your Life Crafted album directly in the rings instead of in the page protectors, every time you cover up those holes, every time you span the gap between the pages, cut it. I know it's easier to keep it together, and that's why I kept it together here, but I really should have cut it before I started using or putting down these die cuts, because I do end up cutting that. Today I will do absolutely nothing right in half, and it didn't bother me that it was cut in half, except that when you have something in the rings on your Life Crafted album, there is a little bit of a space in between the left side and the right side, and it was hard to read because of the way that the words cut. So I ended up having to rearrange that a little bit. So just word of warning, if you're gonna scrapbook like me and go directly in the rings, just make sure that you're cutting apart your pages and punching the holes again so that you're aware of where they are every time so you don't end up like me. So I'm just about done arranging these die cuts, and I'm going to go and cut this in half, and you will see just the lovely screw up. It's okay though, I pull it back from the brink by just moving it over. I'm covering up just a little bit of that photo, but it's okay because it frames my face nicely. I'm going to pull in some Cocoa Daisy letter stickers and put the title Snug is a Bug. And then instead of enamel dots, which is what I was going to initially do, I'm going to use these plus signs from the Cocoa Daisy September collection because I thought that they added just a really nice graphic icon instead of the enamel dots. Plus, I really like that they have like sort of black outlines on them, so it kind of reinforces all of the black stitching and the black journaling that I'm going to add in here in a second. So I really like the way that that looked. So I'm just rearranging everything, making sure that it's all nice and snug as a bug together and placed nice and tight. So that's what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to add journaling lines because I like the way that it mimics the stitching. And then I'm going to call it good. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Traci M. Reed. I'd love to see you over there as well. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.